Have you ever wondered how to take your horse's vital signs? Hi, I'm Franke, and on behalf of the Certified Horsemanship Association, this is a safety and educational tip. This is my assistant, Stacy Gazelle, and my horse's name is Jack. He's an American quarter horse. So when we're talking about vitals, we're talking about temperature, pulse, and respiration, which are the three main vitals that we're going to be focusing on today. The first one we're going to look at is actually your horse's pulse. Now, horse's pulse should be somewhere between 30 and 40 beats per minute. If your horse is going a little bit faster or a little bit slower, it's not time to panic. What you really want to do is you want to compare that with what their resting vitals are. So this horse has just come out of his stall, and he hasn't been running or anything like that. So this is probably what his typical resting vitals are. But if I had been running him or riding him or doing something that was strenuous, I could expect to see a higher heart rate. If he were sick or something like that, then we might also expect to have a higher heart rate. So this is something that you could pass on to your vet if you needed to. It's just information that'll help them get an understanding of your situation. I'm gonna go ahead and use the stopwatch on my smartphone, and that's gonna keep track of my time, and I'm gonna go for about 15 seconds of listening to the heartbeat. And then I'm gonna actually times that by 4, and that'll give me the number of beats in a minute. So let me go ahead and show you how you might check that pulse and how you might calculate the amount of time compared to the amount of heartbeats that you hear. We're using a stethoscope today that we're going to put underneath our horse, right behind their elbow, and we'll move it around until we can find a real clear heartbeat. And now that I have it acquired, I'm going to go ahead and start my stopwatch. Now, you may not have access to a stethoscope, and so if that's the case, there's other ways that you can take your horse's pulse. For example, you can go right underneath their jowl here, and you'll find an artery that runs right along the bone there. You press your finger against it, and you'll have to move your finger around a little bit to find it, but as soon as you'll find it, you'll find a real clear, crisp pulse. Another place that we may look for a pulse is along the back of the pastern. This is a really interesting place to find a pulse, because if your horse has a condition such as founder or something like that, then there's increased blood flow to that area. That's where you'd maybe find a pounding pulse. But if they're not in any kind of troublesome or problematic situation like that, then chances are you're not going to feel as much of a pulse here unless you get right on the correct spot. Today, to find the temperature, we're going to be using a digital thermometer. Now, this thermometer comes with probe covers, and so this is just important for sanitary purposes. Next, I'm going to add just a little bit of Vaseline here, and that just helps kind of keep things easier on your horse as you're using it. Now, it's important to note that if you're using a glass thermometer, it does take a little time to register, and so glass thermometers will come with a ring on the end of them. Make sure you tie a string onto that, and then you can tie it to your horse's tail to prevent it from falling out and potentially breaking on the ground. Obviously, some horses are going to be a little bit bothered by this, so we'll just take our time and try and make things as gentle as possible. This should get to be a fairly routine procedure for your horse if you take resting vitals, to where they're not bothered by it and it doesn't matter too much to them. I'll go ahead and lift his tail real gently. Some horses like to clamp their tail, and so it can be especially difficult to get this done. You want to make sure that your horse has had an opportunity to settle with the idea of getting this done before you try and do it. So I start the thermometer, and with these digital thermometers, they register quickly, so I can actually just hold it in and take a minute. It'll beep and let me know that it's acquired the temperature. What we're looking for is 99 to 101 degrees, somewhere in that range, and so that if your horse is above that or below that, you want to make sure that you understand what normal is for your horse. So oftentimes the reason we take these vitals is to establish a baseline for our horses. You always want to keep safety in mind as you're working with these animals. And so if you notice, I stand to the side as I'm taking his temperature. If he gets bothered or upset by what I'm doing, I don't want to be in the line of fire. And so I'm just going to try and go with him as much as possible as he moves. Jack's being real nice here, and he's settled with the idea of this, and he's allowing us to do this. So it makes it helpful if you've taken the time to train your horse for this sort of thing, so that when an emergency does happen, you don't have to try and figure that out as things are progressing. Okay, so we came out at 100.2 degrees, so that's well within normal. And so that's what we want to see is a horse that's in those normal tolerances. The final thing that we're going to be doing is checking our horse's respiration. Now keep in mind your horse's respiration should be somewhere between 15 and 30 breaths per minute. Now this can vary a lot because your horse can hold their breath, or they may be breathing a little bit hard because they've been working. So you want to take that into account and understand that respiration can be one of the toughest things to really measure on your horse. I'm going to start by putting my hand on my horse and feeling as I watch my horse's flank to see if I can see movement in inhaling and exhaling. The best way to stand is so that you're looking towards your horse's tail. That way you can see a real definite movement. Another place to check is at your horse's nostril. Oftentimes their nostril will flare just a little bit as they're inhaling and exhaling. You can also use a stethoscope against your horse's trachea, and you can listen for breaths. This has been an educational and safety tip brought to you by the Certified Horsemanship Association. My name's Teddy Franke. Thank you.